Have you ever placed your hand upon the top of the head of a child? As a parent and a teacher of small children, I get a chance to do that often. And the thing that you'll notice, first of all, when you put your hand up there on the head, first of all, is their giddiness, they're moving around, but then the heat, the warmth coming out of the brain case there. There's a lot of it. That is a good example of what's going on inside this apparatus in terms of the combustion that's occurring. There's a biological combustion, a true burning of biological fuel as this life process is continued. The food goes in and it gets burned by our mechanism of our body and creates that heat. But likewise, I think we can draw an analogy from this heat coming off of the brain to the heat of thinking, the heat of thought, what I would call the heat and noise of sentience, although the noise is simply something that we hear inside of our head, never with our ears. The heat and noise of sentience. Why am I talking about this? It's because I was contacted by someone, and they asked me about managing this cacophony of clamor inside the brain in terms of emotions that are going on and how to control that. And the analogy that comes to my mind is similar to how do we manage with internal combustion engines the heat and the noise that is generated by the running of the engine. Because I think that human beings, like all other elements of biology, are really nothing more than mechanisms that have input, some sort of an activity, and an output. And in this case, the output is of the inefficiencies and the drive of our thoughts are the emotions that come out. And like the heat that is dissipated out of our skull, which we don't have, our emotions are kind of a flow. The excess emotions that we have are kind of a flow of this sentience, this consciousness inside our head. And we don't necessarily know how to deal with those. They can't dissipate out of our skull like the heat can. So what happens to them? Well, just like with an automobile, if we use that analogy, the engine inside of an automobile, we have to have some way to manage the heat. And there's two ways that's done with an automobile. First is managing how much heat is created by the efficiency and size of the engine within. So if we have a small engine or a very efficient engine, then there's less heat created and less heat to manage and to worry about. An electric motor, of course, is probably the most efficient, although heat is generated there as well, although there's a payoff, right? Maybe not the same horsepower. Now, when you have the heat and all that's coming out of the engine, we have to deal with getting it away from the engine lest it cause damage, and that's done through systems such as the radiator and the fan and those types of mechanisms. So, similarly, within our brains, we can do the same type of things. The emotions that come out of our consciousness need to be managed in some way. This noise of this clamor of feelings that are running around in our head. There's so many of us. You need to manage them, and there's two ways to do that. The one is to basically create less noise. Techniques have been developed over time, such as yoga, meditation, maybe a religion, the use of faith, which can quiet a lot of our concerns. These types of things will help to reduce the amount of noise inside of our head, the amount of emotions that are coming out. Working on things such as finding ways to have good and effective relationships with others, learning how to communicate well, learning how to socially interact better so that you have fewer conflicts that generate more of the emotions, or maybe just becoming a recluse. Some of us are wont to do that, or you're simply having less interaction with the world around you, and thus less, think about the hermited monk, cloistered away in a cabin in the mountains. In many ways, what they're doing is they're relieving themselves of the source of much of that noise that would be a distraction to their meditative thoughts. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to reduce the input, reduce or learn how to manage your life in such a way that there are fewer emotions there. However, there are some people who are simply high RPM devices. You guys know who you are. And they're like I was watching last night Cars 2 with my daughter, and we were looking at various cars racing around on the track, and there was that one Formula car, and you could just hear the whine in the motor. I can't remember, Fernando I think he was called, the Italian car, and just the whine and the pitch of the different motors in these race cars, and his high pitched whine, and you just knew that there was no way that he could use that motor without generating generating lots and lots of noise and heat and energy. So those who are creative types may have no true escape from this type of thing. The creative folks amongst us might be just doomed, so to speak, like Fernando, who can't even drive down the street to get to buy milk without using his Formula One race car motor. He's going to have to find a way to burn off the excess, to find a way to relieve himself. Now Fernando does that. If I use this race car analogy, this car, it probably wasn't Fernando, something like that. I noticed in his car, his very, very well made Formula car, he had a scoop at the top that captured air that brought it down to cool the motor through air cooling. I'm sure there's a water cooler in there too, I suspect. That brings us to the second way. We can, if we have a mind that generates a lot of emotions, a very active one, or we live a life that generates a lot of emotions. Remember, when we're not able to clean that up, then maybe we need to find ways, or in conjunction with cleaning it up, we need to find ways to handle the excess emotions as they're created. Like a radiator system, like a fan system, like a scoop in Fernando's car that brings the air, crosses it over the engine, and dissipates that heat, or dampens the noise. Maybe there's some sort of a sound acoustic system that dampens the noise in the car. Likewise in our brain, and we can find various ways to do that. Ways to let off the steam, so to speak. One excellent way to do that is through exercise. Exercise is a proven mechanism for helping. Ooh, here comes the wind. For helping to dissipate the excess emotions that are built up inside of us, and then the release of endorphins into our bloodstream that helps us as well. Exercise might be one way to do it. Again, proper diet, socialization, maybe finding getting counseling if necessary to help relieve. I mean, I won't. I'm not ashamed to say it. I've received counseling in the past, and just sitting with my counselor, whom I trust, and unburdening myself in a safe and comfortable way with this person about what was going on in my life was a very freeing thing. It was a way of dissipating those emotions. So let's just review what we talked about right here. Human beings are basically engines of combustion, similar to automobiles, if I can use such a crude analogy. We generate the emotions that through our combustion of our bodies and our minds. We generate emotions and excess thoughts and conflicting ideas that cause us. If we don't find a way to manage them, and they build up in our head, they will cause us damage, just like they will cause damage in an automobile if we don't find a way to liberate the automobile of that excess heat. When that occurs, we need to have ways to control that, and that is either to reduce the amount that we create initially through better living, through techniques of controlling our mind, of giving our mind peace, or find ways to find ways to remove those excess thoughts and emotions from our system in an effective way, so that they don't linger and build up what is called what they call in psychology the intrusive thought. The intrusive thoughts are very dangerous. Those thoughts that get into our head and just won't go away, and the various ways to deal with that as well. As I said before, exercise, counseling, and the like. I don't think we can get rid of it, though. If anybody that's going to try to remove this altogether so that they don't feel is a losing battle, because feeling and pain are part of the definition of sentience. It really is. Even the European Union, I think, defined recently, a few years back, sentience as a part of the pain, as a part of the definition of sentience somewhere. I think I read that somewhere. So sentience, if you're a thinking, a conscious, basically a living part of the element of the universe, you are going to have these thoughts, and they're going to need to be managed. And even if you manage them well, you're still going to have conflict and the pain and the noise. So I don't look to get rid of it. I just look to manage its production, and then help it to dissipate away the excess. There we go. All right, guys, have a great day. I hope that the day is not too conflicting or difficult for any of you. Well, you'll have those days. We all do. And now I got to run and get past this track before the train runs me over. See you all later. Bye-bye. Woo!